When we say mind, as people, we want to think brain, but brain is a physical organ. Mind is the awareness of yourself. What happens when you say karma? We think that if somebody does something bad will happen to them. But as you can clearly see, there are lots of people in the world who do bad things. It has nothing to do necessarily per se with what that person does. If you know the cause, you can predict the effect. If you know the effect, you can bring about the cause. So you can reverse those two, cause and effect.
You are going to love today's guest. Angela is passionate. She is someone that I'm just in awe. I'm listening to what she's telling me, and I'm just like, yes, 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 this. Oh my gosh. We talked today with Positively Angela about the 7 Hermetic Principles. And if you've never heard of this, you are in for a treat. We talked about how Chinese medicine and these principles are just a beautiful partnership. We talked about polarity. We talked about cause and effect. We talked about how we can really, truly use these principles in the realm of TCM, but also in everyday life. You are going to be blown away and you are going to love what we did today for you. So without further ado, let's go. I am so delighted to welcome Angela today. I don't know Angela. We've never met, but we've been connecting on Instagram. This is how we connect to each other, right? The internet, social media. This is how we connect to TCM rock stars all over the world. And Angela is in my country, just one province over. She's in Alberta. The last time I was in Calgary, I ran the Calgary Marathon on July 4th. And it snowed. This is how crazy the weather in Calgary is. So I wanted to welcome Angela to the AcuPro show today because we're going to talk about something that is going to blow your mind. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you for having me.
Her last name is Nurse, which is fantastic because she's here to take care of all of us, which is fantastic, right? So Angela has a platform called Positively Angela. She graduated from a TCM college in Alberta in 2014. So she's one of us. However, she got curious about something very different, but she connected TCM to what she's going to talk about today, which is the 7 Hermetic Principles. And if you've never heard about it, this is your chance to listen to something that I kind of look at it from a law of attraction kind of thing. So I'm going to let Angela tell us how first she got into the Hermetic principles and connecting them to TCM.
That's a great introduction, so thank you. What got me interested when I was in school, you could not separate Confucianism from TCM. Like it was so ingrained in everything. And I thought, but isn't it supposed to be medicine? So why can't you take the quote unquote philosophy out of it? I needed to know why. Because I know part of our reading was The Yellow Emperor. And I thought, what does he have to say about this? So I started to read it. And he's talking about man being in between heaven and earth. And I was like, tell me more. And he started to talk about the sage and the mind. And I was like, what is he talking about? And that's what led me down this rabbit hole because I'm looking at it and I'm like, but we're just learning medicine in school. But when you see the correspondence between the two, now you begin to understand why I can't take the philosophy out of it because the philosophy is the foundation of it as to how they put the whole modality together in the first place. And so I thought, wow, this is intriguing. But what landed me with the Hermetic principles, because I know you mentioned the word law of attraction, that's where they have siphoned the information from, the Hermetic principles. But because they've siphoned it, they don't have a deeper understanding of what it actually is and how it actually works. So when you are dealing with TCM, they talk about the interior and the exterior being related, the yin and yang. You can't separate the two. All of that is oneness. When you're learning the Hermetic principles, the first principle would be mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is a mental creation. That's the first principle. When you're talking about TCM, we talk about the Shen. If you reach beyond the Shen, that's what makes the Shen work. Because everything we talk about in TCM is body related. But you have to go now, what powers the body itself? So I'll leave it there for a moment so that you can ask questions to draw out more information.
Yeah, no, I like that. Thank you for starting the conversation. So there are seven principles. You just started with the one.
Mhm.
So before I go into the mind and the first one, which everything is mind, which I totally understand, but we're going to go back to this. I want to see, where does the Hermetic principle come from at the core of it? Is it coming from Egyptian time, from Greek people, from Confucius, like you mentioned, Taoism? Like, where does that come from?
The Hermetic principles are not man made by any stretch of the mean. They're called Hermetic because of Hermes. Hermes is Greek, right? The Greek messenger of the gods. His task was to write down these seven principles and teach them to humanity. That was his job. So the seven Hermetic principles are only called Hermetic because he's the scribe. He's the one who wrote them down. So when you hear of something being hermetically sealed, it means it has been preserved in its truest form. So when people ask, where do the Hermetic principles come from? They don't come from humanity. The world as we know it, or the universe as we know it, would not exist without the Hermetic principles. So they don't come from humanity. Humanity observes them. When we have the seasons, we didn't make the seasons. We observe the seasons and we get into alignment with the season. He wrote them down over 36,000 years ago. He only wrote them down. But as we know, humanity has been around for a lot longer.
So, what you're saying is the Hermetic principle,
Mhm.
although they were associated with Hermes because he wrote them down, they're just not coming from anything because they just are. Right?
Exactly.
They just are. They're not something created, just like you said, the season, just like the universe is functioning and the planets are going around and doing their own thing. They just are. So that I totally get. I totally get that. Thank you for explaining that. That's really useful, actually. So now we go back to that first principle, the one that's related to the mind. And if you guys hear a rooster in the background, Angela has a beautiful rooster in your house right now. He needs love and he needs attention. So if you hear him, he's just talking, he's being part of the whole podcast. So I think that's fantastic because I have two roosters next door. And every time I record on my patio, they're always going to be really loud. And I always go, hey, the roosters are saying hello. So it's so fitting that you have a rooster. I think that's fantastic. So the first law of the seven principles
Mhm.
is connecting to the mind and looking at the mind. You were talking about heaven and earth and yin and yang, positive, negative. We can look at that later on, polarity. But my first thought is looking at do 20, the one that's closest to the top, the closest to the sky, the heavens, whatever we want to call it, the most young part of the body, which also connects to the brain and the mind and the spiritual and all that. Is that principle tells you that everything that is first comes from the mind and not from the body. The patient is sick and they have, I don't know, low back pain chronic for 10 years, their mind is the one that's basically in charge of that, not their body making their mind sad or feeling, oh my God, there's no hope, I can't get better. It's the opposite. It's the mind that's controlling the body. So explain that if you agree with that.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Because when we say mind, as people, we want to think brain, but brain is a physical organ. Mind is the awareness of yourself. For instance, if you have Alzheimer's, you have forgotten something, but what you still know is you. That awareness of yourself, every time you say, I am, you are saying, I'm aware of myself. That is what mind is. Mind is the awareness of self. Now, what are you aware of? I'm aware of my back hurting. Then you have a person who is like that. You can needle, you can do herbs, but the bigger question is why? because there's something that they are aware of. You go all the way backwards and you ask why. Your back hurt. Why? You will find there is an emotion attached to that. But when you go back further from the emotion, you will see something right there that they are keenly aware of that controls absolutely everything their body does. So that's how it works. I know in TCM, we don't just relieve symptoms, it goes further than that for us. But in Western, they want to relieve the symptom. But when you apply the principles of creation, the Hermetic principles, you look for the cause, the actual root cause. And if you deal with that portion, everything else corrects itself because it must. Every ailment follows principle. Does that make sense?
Yes, in TCM, we also look for the root cause, right?
Yeah.
However, so this is when I need you to explain the differences,
Mhm.
is that when we look for the causes, a lot of chronic illness we say stems from emotions or emotional trauma, but some come from lifestyle, like diet and stress and traumatic event like losing a loved one and all that kind of stuff. So if the root cause is a traumatic event, obviously it affects our emotional being and the emotional being affects our physical being. I
Yeah.
understand that. I know when I tell patients the root cause, if it's emotional, let's look into it. The fear of looking into it stops them from the physical healing because they have to go into the emotional healing first. And I found that emotional healing is more scary than physical healing for most people. So, how do you help people using the Hermetic principles to go through that process so they come out on the other side much better?
Oh, that is a beautiful question. See, when you have someone laying on your table, they trust you, for one. So when you're dealing with emotional things and you speak to them, you ask questions. Why is this going on? What are your thoughts about this? Or you give them a simple exercise. I do this a lot. I guess you want to call it visualization. So the way to assist in that situation, you say, okay, I want you, if you can, I know your knee hurts here where I touch it. I know it hurts, but I'm going to keep my hand on your knee. But I want you to close your eyes. And in your mind's eye, I want you to climb 2 stairs. Just one, two. Because it's something you can't do right now. But I want you to see if you can do that. In your mind's eye, you just lay there and my hand is on your knee. And I just want you to move your knee. And you give them time to do that. And it's an interesting thing that happens. They say, but wait, my knee doesn't hurt. I know it doesn't hurt, but keep moving it in your mind's eye. And then I explain to them because there's an experiment that scientists have done with the athletes. They put the little cap on, and the coach will tell the athlete, okay, I want you to run the race in your mind. Just run your best race. And all they're doing is sitting there at the computer with a probe on that monitors the brain activity. They run the race, but the body responds as if it were running. So neurologically, and then the muscles fire, and they ran the race. So now I've had people say to me, but that feels so good that my knee doesn't hurt. And when they get up, the knee doesn't hurt. Not because I've done anything, but because you're making them see that what they are focusing on, what they're thinking about, what they're giving their attention to is directly attributing itself to how they feel within their own bodies. You mentioned something that was very interesting there, their eating habits. The eating habit is a result of what their thoughts are. This is why we call it comfort food. Why? Because they're trying to comfort this thing that's going on right here. And then they say, but I've got this problem because I overeat. It's not the overeating. So if you get them to see what they can actually do here, and they see it for themselves and feel the response for themselves, they will now put the effort in to go through the quote unquote emotional side. All you're doing is giving a suggestion, something that's very easy that they would do anyway. because that's what they're doing. When they come in and they say, well, my back hurts or my knee hurts, every time I even think about the stairs, I feel the pain. I can't do this. What can you do to help me? Walk them through the exercise mentally. And now the body wants to respond the way they see it. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does. I know you probably know, but not everybody has heard Joe Dispenza's story. Because when you're talking about this, it reminds me of this. And
Mhm.
if you've never heard of Joe Dispenza, I encourage you to go and check more on him. This was a chiropractor that was in his 20s, ran a triathlon, and he was on his bike at the part of the triathlon when he got hit by a truck and ended up in the hospital with his back broken, the spine broken in 6 different places. And so he was told that he would never walk again. They can do surgery to make him comfortable so he could be in a wheelchair. He went and asked for more opinion. He had 4 different opinions in California from different surgeons, different doctors, specialists, people that were really renowned, telling him the same thing. And so he decided to say no to all surgeries and to just lay there face down on his hospital bed. And they all thought he was insane to do this. Now, he was a chiropractor, so he had a very good understanding of the spine. And so he spent the next 6 weeks face down. And all he did was exactly what you just talked about. He visualized his spine getting back together, refusing itself, the whole spine fusing, the spinal column, the fluid, everything was working beautifully like a normal spine. And he did this every single day, face down for 6 weeks. And 6 weeks later, although his muscular being was a bit atrophy, he was able to get up, and he made a deal with himself that if he was going to do this, he was going to help people. And he's been doing this for 30 years, helping people literally walk away from disease, like things that are unbelievable. He went and got a degree in neurology and spent his time really looking at science and how the human body, with the mind, can heal the body in a positive way. And that story stayed with me. Every time I'm in pain, I'm like, your mind can heal it. Your mind can heal it. So I really resonate with that specific principle and how you put it together. So thank you for that. If you want to go on to the second one, I would love to hear about the second one.
The second one is the principle of correspondence. So above equals within, below is without. So as above, so below. As within, so without. And in layman's terms, you reap what you have sown. You can only plant corn and get corn, which means now when you look at the interior and exterior relationship with your organs, one of them is inside and the other has a presentation on the outside. They correspond. Tongue and heart correspond. You can only say what's within you. You can be silent, but whatever is within you is what comes out. I'll let you ask me about the TCM portion so I can show you as far as what the interior exteriorly related issues are that could arise in TCM where you look at correspondence.
So is correspondence like karma? Or is
Very
it even related to karma?
uh, what happens when you say karma, we think that if somebody does something bad will happen to them. But as you can clearly see, there are lots of people in the world who do bad things. It has nothing to do necessarily per se with what that person does. When you are talking about the correspondence, it is based upon what you believe it to be. If you think it is bad, then it has to be because as within, so without. You think it's bad, it has to be bad. But if you don't think it's bad, this is why people look like they get away with bad things. They don't see it that way. We're on the outside looking in and we're like, wait, that's evil. But why is it that the wicked always succeed? Because it's not their deeds, it's what they believe their deeds to be. That's why. No, it's not karma in the sense of what we think it is. You do bad, you get bad. It matters with what do you believe bad to be? What do you believe good to be? Because you can also say maybe that's cause and effect. No, I would not say that it is karma in the sense that humanity thinks it is.
Now, If you think it a different way, because you send me in another direction in my thoughts, then I'm looking at going back to the mind instead of looking at this is bad, this is good. It's all perception. So there's nothing bad and nothing good. It's like the yin yang symbol. There's nothing black, nothing white. It's just things are moving constantly, but it's how you perceive them.
Yes.
So now I get that. Is that where you're going with this second law?
But that's what that second law is. And it's funny you should say that everything is moving because that's it goes right into the third principle, which is vibration. This is what I mean when I say it is one of the most natural things when you look at it. And this is why people take it for granted because it's so simple, it looks like. But when you put it together, and that even though we are here, we are governed by the same principles that the sun is governed by. When you're looking at no bad and no good, why would someone perceive something to be bad or something to be good? It is based upon their previous experience. And their previous experience has formed their perception so that when they see something, they judge it through that lens, thereby making it bad or making it good. So when you say there's no bad and there's no good, people say that's not true, but it's not bad or good. It is moving and it's based upon your perception. Does that make more sense?
Yes, yes. So now tell me about the law of vibration, because just the word vibration, first of all, I don't know if that's related at all, but I feel like it's my voice vibrates. So it would be more like my Rent 22, my words, my voice vibrate. But also, I absolutely love vibration therapy, like singing bowl, like tuning forks, like all this. What is the vibration law?
The law of vibration is simple. It says that everything is moving. Nothing stands still. Everything is moving. And like you said with Rent 22, the voice. We learn our words, but vocally, we don't do words, we do a vibration. So, depending on the frequency, the rate at which that vibration moves, it has an influence on the body. As you might know, this one, Yamamoto is
Yes, Yamamoto.
and as you know the story, he spoke to the water, he told it loving things, froze it, and he looked at the shape that it took. The water simply responded to the vibration. So then he spoke not loving words. Now, words are words. Words don't do anything. It is you with your intent. If I say I love you, that will modify the vibration, the tone, and the way it moves, the way it oscillates. But if I say I hate you, I can't stand you. That's different. So now that wave that's moving, so when he froze it and he looked at both of them. Water does not have ears. It can't hear what hate is. It can't hear what love is, but it senses what moves and that's what it responds to. So when you're playing the bowl for someone or you're tapping the fork, the body will respond to that tone. Whatever that frequency of that tone is, the body will respond to it. And this is why the quote unquote healing can happen. We do it to our plants. Plants don't have ears. But if you speak to your plant in a loving way, you might even have to speak to your plant. Just touch it with love and it will flourish.
So far, that's my favorite law. I really resonate with this because for different reason.
Yeah.
I feel like every time we talk to our dog, I know he doesn't understand the word we're saying. He's literally responding to the tone of our voice, the vibration of our voice, if we say it a certain way. Because I know he doesn't understand the word. If you say, I'm going to go to the kitchen and cut your throat, he's going to go all happy, right? Because he doesn't know what I'm saying. But I have this tone of voice that's all happy and jolly. Right? But if I start, don't do this, and then my voice is vibrating, this is a big no, he knows. He's like, oh, what happened? That is just a vibration. The second thing is, I love the solfeggio binaural beats. For anybody that's listening, if you've never heard of the solfeggio or binaural beats, they are really ancient too, and they follow the chakras. There's seven basics one. And the 528, which is a vibrational A beat that I listen to all the time is the one that I every time feels like it just puts me in a parasympathetic state. It's like getting acupuncture, it's
Yeah.
like meditating. I can be working, but if I put the 528 hertz,
Mhm.
I'm in a Zen state, but still flowing. Like you said, everything move. I'm moving through my
Mhm.
zone of genius. You know how people say you're in the zone? I'm so in the zone. That's my favorite one. So when you talk about the law of vibration, this is how I think about it. Does that make sense?
It does. And when you spoke that with your dog, if something is wrong with you, if you're ill, your dog knows. Did you say anything? We think that we have to say something to influence vibration. You know, a look that your grandmother would give you if you're talking in church. She doesn't say anything to you, but that look made you feel you're going to get a whooping when you get home. You don't have to speak to convey anything. You can convey a thought without having to say a word. And so that's also part of vibration. So thank you for saying that with your dog because it reminds me of animals who can pick up on illness. They're just going by the vibration because it feels differently to them.
Yeah, and you're right, because there are a lot of animal service animal that will prevent or know that their person may fall and faint or get into an epileptic attack or get into a post-traumatic stress attack. So I see that vibration now. Do you connect chi in TCM to this law?
It is connected to all of the laws because you can't separate the laws. We only number them 1 through 7 for easy comprehension. But when you start to flow with it, you see how it naturally flows. You can't break them apart. Qigong, you feel the vibration around you, you are sensing it. So it's there. You can't separate it out. When you're learning how to needle, they tell you have to feel the qi under the needle. We can't see it. But if you tune yourself to really pay attention to what you feel underneath the needle, you'll begin to feel your own self as you hold the needle, but then you feel them as you insert the needle. So it's just a matter of being able to sense it and to feel it because technically speaking, you could say it's invisible, but it isn't invisible. If you pay attention, you'll be able to feel it. Like you really do get a sense of it.
And I think you're right. When we learn chi, we talk about that's more of a concept and it's everywhere. So obviously, it's the same thing with the seven hermetic principles.
Mhm.
With chi, we talk about subcategories, the middle jiao chi, like zhong qi or yuan qi or source qi. It's just so we can understand them,
Yeah.
but it's all oneness at the same time. So you separate them to
Mhm.
just understand certain way of thinking so you can actually wrap your head around the whole oneness and around chi, but it's all just one thing. So let's go to the fourth law.
Diagnosis has to be the hardest part of Chinese medicine. We always say there is no wrong treatment in TCM, only the wrong diagnosis. This is why I created my second book, Chinese Medicine Made Easy, to make it easy to grasp using a lot of colorful visuals. I have included all Chinese medicine foundation, yin yang fei, five elements, zong fu organ, all of it. All diagnosis, of course, including tongue and pulse, practice case studies to help you improve your skills, as well as give you access to my online fillable intake form to use with your own patients. You can download the digital version on any device, and it comes with many video links to complement it. Or if, like me, you like to read a real book, the hard copy ships all over the world. Before you invest in this book, you can download a sample of it to make sure that the format of the book is everything you were looking for, because I want to make sure that you are absolutely benefiting from it. Listen to what people have to say about my green book, Chinese Medicine Made Easy. The more I read, the more I like this book. It is simple to follow. All information is super organized with great pictures, makes memorizing a lot easier. This book will definitely make my learning a lot more productive. Yay! So happy to hear that. You've done it again. You are amazing. I wish we had your resources 20 years ago back in TCM school. This also makes my day because this is why I do what I've been doing with AcuPro Academy for quite a few years now to support everyone. Check out the links in the show notes below or go to my website, acuproacademy.com, and click the shop tab on the menu bar and get your copy today.
Polarity is beautiful in that I know people say we live in a dual world. Actually, no. In order to have a pole, it looks like it's opposites because we say opposites attract. That is not the case. So, polarity is showing you one thing, but it's in poised opposition. One is on the left and it's also on the right. Not because it split itself, but because it is moving, because nothing can stand still. But the way that it moves in that pendulum swing is determined by the vibration. Love and hate are exactly the same. It is only the vibration that would allow you to differentiate where you are. Because you ever done a survey and it says strong dislike, and in the middle you say neutral, and on the other side strongly agree, so strongly disagree and strongly agree? That is polarity. All they're asking you for is one thing: your opinion. Whether you strongly agree or strongly disagree, it's just a matter of how did the thing that they're asking you make you feel. That is polarity. So we're always moving. And so one of the best ways to understand this is water. When you boil water, because they tell you water has those three states. But what influences the three states of water? The vibration, the rate at which it is moving. So you boil it, you agitate the atoms, you're going to get steam. Slow it down, slow down the atoms, you will get ice. But leave it the way it is, you have this beautiful liquid. It is exactly the same with the emotions. This is why with liver, when you have repressed emotion, it simmers under the surface. It doesn't go anywhere. You're trying to tamp it down. Yeah. And so when you have that repressed anger that is sitting there, it's just under the surface. So when you say, are you easily irritated? What you're wanting to do there, when you use liver 3 to soothe, you're using polarity because that person is really heightened over here. So you want to slow the vibration of it down. You want to slow down the anger, dissipate it. This is also why you would go to liver 3. It's furthest away because it draws, it dissipates, it spreads it to slow the frequency down. You can tell where they are based upon how they move in that stage. So that is polarity, the swing of the pendulum. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So tell me if I'm on the right track because
Yeah.
I'm listening and my brain goes and think of things. When we look at the balance method, Dr. Tan or Master Tong, it's holographic opposite, right? If I have elbow pain on the right side, then I needle the left knee, like that polarity of opposite microsystem. Is that polarity?
Yes and no.
I love that answer because that's so TCM.
Okay, so no, you're so right. Because when you do the mirror, you would do left shoulder, right hip. It looks like it's opposite, but it's not opposite. You are treating one body. All you are doing is moving it. You are moving it to the part that it's the same. You're not looking at an opposite being. You're looking at one being who's just flipped around. So when you needle upper to lower, you can say it is polarity because they're in poised opposition. One is up here, one is down there, but it doesn't mean that they're different. They're just located in different places. That's how you can look at polarity in that state. But the no part for not polarity, what are you doing? You are using the law of causation. but we'll get to that one because you're using it because you want to bring about an effect in the injured area without having to go into the injured area. You want to bring about the effect of ease. So you would needle that part of the body furthest away in the mirror what you are aware of, and then you move according to how you are aware from where you are to where you're going, polarity. But the way that you move creates your own pattern, your own rhythm, your own habit. That's the law of rhythm. There's an ebb and there's a flow. That's the rhythm. Alan Watts says, you'll know a man by his habits. That's the law of rhythm. But in TCM, what does it teach you? It teaches you to observe. If you observe someone long enough, you will see their habit and you'll be able to understand the thought that triggered them to behave in such a fashion. Does rhythm make sense? Rhythm is just the way in the pattern something moves. And the reason why we have rhythm helps us to predict. How do they know when winter happens? Because somebody had to observe. Winter takes this long. So what comes after winter? They say spring. So how long does spring take? They observe. Girls, 7 years, they go in the 7-year increments. That is observation of rhythm. So now when you see the observation of that rhythm in the 7 years, now you begin to predict what is going to happen in between there. So the law of rhythm allows us to observe when something starts, when it stops, so you can say when it will start again.
Yes, I feel like the law of rhythm to me is I see the yin yang symbol
Mhm.
surrounded by the five elements. It's a constant change, constant flow, but we've observed how everything around us has a rhythm, including nature, us, people in their lifestyle, the rhythm. Like I totally get the women's rhythm, right? 7 and 14, you're a teenager and then you become an adult and then you have your fertility years and then you pass that stage and there's a transformation per stage.
Mhm.
And it's that rhythm that we come to expect. We can have a good winter or a bad winter. If I know there's nothing good or bad, but in a way, we can have a winter that's very cold and a winter that's not cold. But no matter what, it's a winter. So I could see the rhythm of life. It feels like it's the circle of life with the five elements and the yin yang symbol all put together. That's how I see it.
Yes, because it's because of that rhythm you would be able to know those five elements because they occur. This is why they occur in the fashion that they do through the observation. Now you know the nature or the habit or the rhythm of summer. Now you can predict what kinds of injuries can come out of summer, just like winter. What kinds of injuries can we have out of winter? Because you've seen how winter is. So, rhythm allows you to predict and circumvent when you are treating, if you can see where they are in that differentiation that you make. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally makes sense. Before I was in the TCM industry, I was in the fitness industry
Huh?
for 15 years and I worked in fitness clubs and managed fitness clubs and taught aerobics and all that fun stuff. And the predictability or the rhythm
Mhm.
was that we knew every year, January and February, you can't found a spot or a machine in the gym because we have all the New Year's resolution. Everyone buys a membership. And then by March, the people that are regular found their gym again because now they get their machines again. We have that ebb a little bit again in September after kids go
Yes.
back to school.
Mhm.
And we know that it's predictable. You're absolutely right. This is why when you are on any advertising platform around that time, the end of December and January, all is advertising to go back to the gym or be in shape or whatever, because those people know this is the season of the rhythm of people wanting to get back into exercise. So I totally get that. So now tell me about the sixth law, which obviously I think is the cause and effect.
Yes, it is cause and effect. It simply states every cause has its effect, but every effect has its cause. If you know the cause, you can predict the effect. If you know the effect, you can bring about the cause. So you can reverse those two, cause and effect. So what does that look like in TCM? All you're doing is observing the rhythm so you can predict what's going to happen, cause and effect. And so when you do your herbal remedies, if you have someone who's coming in, like, I guess you could say like a long-term anxiety issue, you would want to choose the Ganmidacil. And because that is a great formula for long-term use. But what's the effect you want? You want a calming effect. So you would use intern, you would use Shipman, you Red 17, Lung 9, PC6, Heart 7. You want the effect of what? You want a calming effect. So you choose the points that are calming. But that's how we choose our points, based upon what is the desired effect that this person is coming to me for. You choose by way of causation. So there are always going to be a series of causes and effects beneath that main chief complaint is, that main symptom is. So now you've got to go backwards. So when you treat the cause that's underneath there to mitigate their symptoms, alleviate, and hopefully prevent them from coming back. Does that part make sense?
Yeah, it does. And what's interesting is, one of the things that I always teach students is one strength about TCM is when patients go see their Western doctors and they have whatever they're diagnosed with, they may say the cause is unknown. We don't know why. You have unexplained infertility. We don't know the cause. And one of the things that I always say is the strength of TCM, nothing happens without a cause. There's always a cause. And so we may not be able to help that person, but we know for sure we can try to figure out the cause. Because if there's an effect, if you're sick, there's a cause. You can't say maybe they don't know, but you still need to dig into it because there is a cause, right? And so this cause and effect to me really relates to the fact that TCM strength is to empower patient to feel like they've been heard when you tell them that the cause is years of worry and overthinking that basically made a hole in their stomach and now they have ulcers. It's pretty simple. It's like doctors know that stress create ulcers, but when it comes to certain disorders, they don't have the answer. So there's no known cause, but TCM can always tell you, okay, here's the cause. So the cause and effect to me, yeah, you're right. It makes so much sense. It's very easy.
There are no random things, which tells us, just as you said, if there is a symptom, something causing it's not idiopathic. I do not like that word, of an unknown origin. It just means you don't have time to look for the origin of it. I like how you said it's the years of worry. Here's where you apply the principles now. Years of worry. Nobody gets up and worries year after year without cause. What is the cause of their worry? That is why they have ulcers. It's okay. So why are you doing this? I've always done it. I'm like, and if you continue to do it, you know exactly what's going to happen. So do you want to fix it? And as I say again, when they're laying on that table, they trust you. Talk to them. There's a skill of speaking to someone and having them conjure within their own minds. You said, I don't want to worry anymore. So what are you worried about? And once you get them talking and they can make the correlation between their worry and their ulcers, they come to you and say, help me not worry anymore. And so you would incorporate your formula, your points, but the visualization is the glue that holds it all together. You must allow them to see themselves free of worry. If you go all the way back to the root for that one thought, you will unravel every single symptom. That's cause and effect. Does that make sense?
So of course it does. The hard part, people have said to themselves in their head, that is not possible because I'm a warrior. They've heard this in their head. They categorize themselves as I'm a warrior. That's what they're going to say out loud.
Yes.
And so, how do you make them shift into going, this is not who you are. There are ways to let go of that worry. You're not worried. That's an emotion, but you're not that. How do you change that? Because people are completely 100% sure that it's not possible for them to stop worrying.
How I always explain it, I use the law of rhythm. And I say to them, we have a way of doing things. We've learned a way. I said, when you do something the same way every time, it becomes a habit. So the beauty of a habit is do it the same way every time. You did not become a worrier overnight. You practice worrying the same way every time. So to become something else, identify the new behavior you want to do. Instead of worrying, what do you want? Do you want peacefulness? You want to be sure that things are going to work out. That feels different from worry. What would that feel like to you? And that's what engages them, at least for me, and gets them talking about how they've done this thing their whole lives. And all I say to them, all you've done your whole life is a habit. Our whole lives is comprised of habits. Some of them are helpful and some of them are harmful. Habit doesn't just mean crack or alcohol or cigarettes. No, gambling doesn't mean that. It means anything you do the same way every time. So, to save yourself, practice this new thing the same way every time, and you will begin to suppress the old. So, whenever one becomes incredibly relaxed and comfortable, the old can always bring itself back to the surface. That's how I explain things to people when they're laying on the table to say, what are we going to do here? Because you can. Because I've heard every excuse, is what I tell them. I have a PhD in excuses. I explain it that way, and it really helps them.
You've been doing this for a while, and I can see you're so passionate about it and very good in being able to vibrate it out of yourself. So it's received really well, right? So, what's the last but not least, I'm sure, law of the seven? We got one more.
The final principle is that of gender, not to be confused with man, woman, boy, girl. If we remember the principle of correspondence as above, so below as within, so without. So above us, there is masculine. Below us, there is feminine. Above, we say now, masculine, we want to confuse that with male. Masculine is the type of movement. The masculine energy penetrates. It is projected outward and it penetrates. But what does it penetrate? It penetrates the feminine. The feminine accepts. It accepts and it gives form. The idea has penetrated your mind. But in order to see the evidence of what you have penetrated your mind with, you need form because we are form. So the best example I always give for this, for masculine and feminine, the potter at the wheel is masculine because it starts here in their mind, and the clay is just on the wheel. The clay is feminine. The clay has to receive the shape they put into it. So when I say to someone laying on my table, I know you've been struggling with this for a while. Would you like me to teach you how to change it? If they give their consent and they say yes, now they're feminine. I have just penetrated them with the suggestion. To penetrate is masculine. To accept the penetration is feminine. In TCM, the yin is feminine. It is cold, it is dark, it receives. Yang is bright. It penetrates. It's like the principle of gender. I'm going to leave that there for you so you can ask me, so I can tell you more.
What's interesting about the gender law is that I always have this conversation with my husband because he's from Canada and his first language is English and my first language is French. And so when we go to France, or recently last year we went to Italy and we've been to a lot of Latin countries, and every word is either masculine or feminine,
Ah,
right? And he's like, how do you know that a table is feminine and that a knife is masculine. How do you decide the gender? In French, the sun is masculine, is le soleil, and la lune, which is the moon, is feminine. It made a lot of sense because I grew up with gender on things that are not necessarily what we think of as gender. So to me, that resonates a lot. I always explain to patients that we have masculine energy and feminine energy that can come up at different time, at different stage, because there's rhythm, right? When you look at our menstruation cycle, we have time in the cycle where our energy is much more masculine, like at ovulation. We're like, woohoo, we get all excited and it's passion. When we are bleeding, it's feminine energy, right? It's more yin, it's more still. So I resonate with this law completely.
Yeah. Language is just one of the things that shows you masculine and feminine. How do you know that the chair is feminine? It receives your butt. So all throughout TCM, you can see these principles. If you yang is masculine, you want movement, needle the left. You want nourishment, needle the right. You've got the yin and yang and yin, which means they become each other. They become each other because there's only one thing. That's why we could say that things are relative in TCM.
Everything you described today makes sense to me. I think about it from the perspective of TCM, but my own perspective, I absolutely love concept of oneness. It's just one thing. I know people can find a lot more about the Hermetic principle from you because you have a YouTube channel and you're on Instagram. We'll put the links in the show notes to those two entities. And then I know you have a website as well. Is there anything else you would like? Final thoughts for everybody that's listening?
Ideally, what I wanted to do also is really to break it down like organ wise. You know how we do things, talking about the heart and the liver and what their functions are, to show people where the law is in that particular thing. Because I find that people think sometimes that these principles are so abstract. I want people to see the beauty of what TCM is, because it treats you as a whole. Because TCM, the masters understood oneness, wholeness, and to get the entire system to work. So I just really want people to know that it is all encompassing. It is not something that should be feared or you think it's weird. It just simply requires observation and an open mind. And you'll see it for yourself because you do see it everywhere else.
When we learned TCM, we went with an open heart, an open mind, and ready to learn and see, right? And that's exactly the same thing. So it's okay if it doesn't resonate with everybody, they are on their own journey. But I really, really appreciate you reaching out and coming in because that was so inspiring. Your passion shows so much, and I absolutely love the way you explain it. I wanted to thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It was a true pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I truly hope you benefited from this episode, and I would love for you to share it with a friend that may benefit from it as well. Follow the show, leave a review, and if you want more, go to my website, acuproacademy.com. I have tons of resources there with treatment protocols, case studies, free courses, and so much more. And connect with me on all social media at Acupro Academy. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Pinterest, and LinkedIn and TikTok. And no matter what, keep rocking it using TCM. Please listen to the disclaimer because the AcuPro Show podcast and material shared through AcuPro Academy, which is a subdivision of Natural Health Sense Incorporated, are designed solely for educational and entertainment purposes. The utilization of information from this podcast or any associated material is at the user's discretion and risk. This content is not meant to replace the guidance of an acupuncturist, Chinese medicine doctor, medical doctor, physician, or any qualified professional, nor is it a substitute for proper diagnosis or treatment. Users are strongly advised not to ignore or postpone seeking medical advice for any existing medical condition with their healthcare professional regarding any health concerns.